Good morning, everyone. I'm seeing our participants list fill up here. Thank you for joining us for our food service webinar, how to support local ranchers and serve local beef. We have our two main speakers here today, Patrick Robinette, who's chairman of the Independent Processing Committee of the United States Cattlemen's Association, and Travis Stovall, who is a very active member of that same committee. We'll also be joined later by a prominent chef. And I am going to turn this over now to Mr. Robinette to get us going, get us started here. For those of you joining us on Facebook, please feel free to drop any questions, comments, concerns in the chat box, and we will address them as we go along here.
Thank you, Leah. My name is Patrick Robinette. I'm owner of Harris Robinette Beef and Company, and also Micro Summit Processors, located in Eastern North Carolina. Also today speaking is Travis Stovall, who is the co-founder and operations manager of Meat America, and Raquel Serber, who is owner and operator of Alita Culinary Craft Kitchen. We wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to share with y'all on how to support local ranchers and to ensure that you support can purchase U.S. produced beef. And so we're going to share some information with you on how to go about doing that. We're going to kick off this webinar with Mr. Travis, and he is going to get us started.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for the wonderful introduction, both Leah and Patrick. I've worked with you folks for Leah almost 4 years on and off. And Patrick, I've known you, I think, going on a year now. This has been very exciting. Like I said, I'm here in Denver, Colorado, grew up in Southwest Colorado on a farming ranching background. And now I am here in Denver, and we focus on the farm to table type movement, and we get a lot of beef into a lot of homes and a few grocery shops, a couple butcher shops, as well as some grocery stores and restaurants. So that's my background, and it's kind of my job today to walk us through the cattle production side and how we do things a little unique here. So I will go with that, and I guess we can go to this slide. Yes, thank you, Patrick. So, you know, it's just there are different phases in the livestock background, especially here on the western part of the United States. We've got a lot of producers that are breeding producers, so they are cow-calf operators, as the common term goes. They have mature mama cows that they breed every spring or fall. Usually there's a fall breeding and a spring breeding, depending on your climate and your availability of pasture and things of those nature. And then we move into the backgrounding. The backgrounding component is basically getting those cattle. The calves are usually weaned at 500 to 600 pounds, 700 pounds, somewhere in there, depending on your setup again. And then backgrounding is basically a simple term. That's when they go from middle school to high school is kind of the way I like to look at it. They get fed up, they get their vaccinations, they get to about 800 to 900 pounds. They're usually out on wheat pasture or on some grass, open fields, and with hay. All of my producers, a majority of the producers that we purchase cattle from, have the ability to be cow-calf producers and backgrounders or stockers. So they get their calves good, hardy, healthy through those high school years, if you will. And then we send them to the finishing yard for the last 180 to 120 days to put that good grain finish on them. I get the questions a lot, you know, what is the lifespan? So 15 to 18 months is when those cattle get finished. So we're right at a year and a half of invested time. And I guess the highlighting component for that I would like to share is that we do get to be around those calves and around those animals. You know, we get to know those mama cows are on our place for 5 to 6 to even 10 years. So we know their uniqueness. You know, we know that they're going to go in that far corner by the tree, and when they do that, then they're going to give their calf. So I guess it's important for me to share to everyone that we highlight and underline the fact that we know these animals. You know, we have a little bit of understanding of their nuances, and that makes it much more connected. Hopefully Rocky will be able to join us here shortly, but she was able to visit some of the ranches with me and the Meat America crew where we buy our animals. So she got to see this whole process. So I guess I will segue into the next one. So what's unique about us and what's neat about us, especially Patrick, since he's got the cattle and the processing plant, I use the term outsource loosely, but I do outsource my my ability to process the cattle just because I haven't got the capital to build my own plant yet. Those are in the future plans, but we do take our cattle straight from our ranches, and then we take them to the feedlot, finish them on corn, like I said, and we take them to one processing plant, the USDA inspected processing plant, to where I know the owner and the manager, so I can visit with Juan on a daily basis and say, I'd like this animal cut that way. I'd like a cowboy ribeye, for instance. So he'll chine the bone out for me. And on the other half of that same animal, I want a boneless ribeye. So I have that direct connection to that processor, which allows me to quote unquote custom cut that animal specifically for the customers in mind. So that's something unique that we all have and are able to do in this direct-to-consumer setup. So then I pick that stuff up, I store it. I'm actually at the storage facility now. So I'm at a cold storage facility building as I'm presenting this. So that beef comes from there to the storage facility where we then store it, inventory it, sort it, and it goes out in our company-owned truck that's our direct employee to whatever restaurant. So it's ranch, feedlot, we can just say that, feedlot, processor, storage. And sometimes the more broad-lining companies, the more conglomerates folks, if you will, if you can see this kind of convoluted map, you know, there is feedlot A, then there's a finishing yard, then they go back even further up. Sometimes they go through sale barns and so on and so forth, but then it will go to a large processing facility. Then more often than not, it goes into a fabricating facility. So they'll portion control that. Like that plant will send all their trim to another plant that then makes the hamburger patties. Well, then it will go to a warehouse that they own that gets stored there. And then it goes to a distribution center. And I know this because I'm now in distribution as well. So then it goes from that distribution center to another grocery warehouse and then it gets on your shelves. So I guess the point again I'm trying to highlight here is the layers that some of the broadliner, more commercial products become much more convoluted. We have a couple stops along the way, but it's kind of hard to not have at least the processing plant and storage stop, but that's where our stop is. So we have a much more direct connection as far as the logistics go. So it helps environmentally, you know, the carbon footprint and the impact we have is less detrimental. And honestly, you're just closer to your beef, both literally and figuratively. So thank you. So how do the packers control the bottom line? You know, my phrase I've coined, I don't know if it's that unique, but what I've always said is, to me, the large 4 conglomerate beef processors that we're all familiar with don't necessarily, I mean, their profit margin, obviously we're all in business and I'm all about capitalism, but their profit margin is their most important component, and there are sacrifices on both ends of this. So they're short-sighting the producers by incentivizing programs that they've created, all natural programs or dry age programs, but rarely does that money ever be allocated back directly to the producer as it should. And on the same token, they present what seems to be as a high quality, local, Aspen Ridge type product to the consumer that really has no meaning, no substance, no bearings, no background. So they're kind of controlling this in the sense that they have the market captured. There's not a lot of availability to go to other processing plants because of the logistics and the economy of scale. You know, these small plants are wonderful, but they can't move the volumes. So these big plants kind of have that capture, and they control the live market. But on the same token, they really have an availability to move prices where they see fit on the other side. I know during this pandemic, chuck rolls, what you get your chuck rolls from, went from $3 to $7 in a matter of 3 days per pound with no real forewarning. And some of the smaller accounts they don't necessarily get treated as well as the larger accounts. They're all about, that bottom dollar. We all are, but I pride myself in about being an interconnected relation with our chefs and with our customers. So that's the overlying picture for me there. Again, Patrick, you might be able to chime in here. I guess the part I would like to lay out here is the connection with some other cattle organizations that the meatpacking industry has, and that wonderful organizations like the U.S. Cattlemen Association allow a more independent approach and independent producers to be able to do things like we're doing right here and right now. To me, the whole lobbying thing is just a slippery slope. I don't know. I spent some time in Washington, D.C. and have told my story, but I feel it's much more important that we tell chefs and tell customers our happy story. So I don't really want to delve into that too much. Patrick, do you have more that you'd like to share in regards to this?
The point I want to bring to attention is that there's a lot of veils that are put over top of the products that are being served or sold to the restaurants. One of it being is the product of USA. And in 2015, up to 2015, we had a country of origin labeling requirement that product from the USA was labeled that way. But then the lobbyings came in and removed that requirement. And what was very unique about that is that they're able to bring carcasses in from other countries, place a cut on that carcass in one of our USDA facilities, and then call it product of the USA. And so that is a misconceived notion that when you buy beef and it has a USDA ledger on the package, it's not necessarily that it's from the United States. And then the other thing is that in regards to certifications, is that we have certifications are forced upon the livestock producers at their expense, and so that then the major packers could use the buzzwords that you're looking for: grass-fed, sustainably raised, humanely raised, things like that. And so it's an expense upon the cattle producer, but he then gives the big boys the right to say, to use those words. And then the other thing was the being able to, these companies, Tyson's, JBS, Cargill, they're multinational. So they have a facility in China, a facility in Mexico, Brazil, wherever. They're able to move the products around the world inside their organization. And so, like, for instance, if you are using lean ground beef in your operation, more than likely that beef trim came from Australia, because that's what they're known for, is lean, is a leaner carcass. And so they're able to just move products around and fit it wherever they need it to be filled in at.
Yeah, thanks. So like Patrick said, that's kind of where we come in. And what Meat America has been able to do is go on the labels, but more than that, like, tell our story. I was just talking to Rocky, one of my chefs that works with us a lot, as I was coming into the office this morning, is like, she said, well, how do I get prepared to this? I just tell her about the time we went down to Branson, Colorado, and you got to meet Craig and Lori Green. And Craig and Lori Green then are on the school board in Branson, Colorado. So they have this kind of full circle approach that it's interconnected. So by a chef buying from Meat America, who got to meet the producer in Branson, Colorado, who helps on the school board and is an active voice in their local community, inadvertently, Elite, the Culinary Craft Kitchen, is able to help that Branson, Colorado, and kind of revitalize, rejuvenate the economy in Eastern Colorado. I'm speaking to my territory because I know it, but I feel that this is all over the United States, is those rural communities this economy is going to help them more and give them a sense of ownership and a sense of pride more so than these large conglomerate packers do. And in addition to that, more fitting for what we're doing here today and what this presentation is about is we're able to share with you exactly what we do. You know, it says holistic approach. So she got to go down and feed them cottonseed oil. She got to see how we do these things. So labeling is important, and we have some labels. Fortunately for me, my business partner is an attorney, so we do have an affidavit that indicates what we do. But where I'm going with this is, you know, we don't have to conjure up something. We don't have to create an Aspen Ridge Ranch. We just, here's our lifestyle, and here's how we're going to share it with you. So that connection makes me feel like we're doing something very wholesome and honest, and an ability to expand on that. Now, with that being said, you know, we've had some shortfalls. I've had inability to process cattle, and I've had to allow restaurants to source elsewhere. And I'm not going to paint this picture full of beautiful roses. There are ups and downs, but at least there's an immediate connection. And when things happen to be a challenge, we're going to go through that challenge together. So that's the driving home point for me for this. And there's Rocky. Rocky, are you online? Might have to raise your hand. I don't know. You can hear me. I'm going to talk briefly until we figure this out on her.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Rocky.
Hi. Well,
Hi.
it's a pleasure and honor to be able to speak to you this morning, and kind of listening to all of the details really makes me understand and feel how important this is. Like you said, we do have some pain points, and that's, you know, a constant flow of this beautiful product, which I'm happy to support. But as I grow, it does become even more painful. But it's really important that my customer base hear where it's coming from, and it makes them more forgiving to having a product sometimes not. They understand that this isn't just a streamline that is only thinking about the bottom line. It's really something that's coming from the community and from the heart, and that's really what I'm about. And I think that's why they're more forgiving with me, because that's just how I run my business. I mean, I bought this business during the pandemic, was running it before, but my business card has my personal number because I help my customers cook the steak they just bought from me, or answer questions at, you know, at their whim. And that to me is putting roots in the community. Being able to tell a story about this beef is just part of that.
Yeah, thank you, Rocky. Yeah, we're not purchase order buyers. We're not buying units of anything. We're not saying 10,000 ribeyes are moving this week and let's forecast them out. We're buying these red Angus calves off the pasture as we can. So that's what makes it fun and challenging.
Miss Rocky, I got a quick question. In buying direct from Meat America and local ranchers, what kind of diversity are you able to bring to your menu? Is it more diversified than if you went with a distributor with box beef, or so are you able to get more diversified, or is it still challenging?
Well, you know, Patrick, Travis and I have kind of grown a relationship. So I think the benefit for me is that I can call him and really learn about maybe cuts that I hadn't even had in my purview to order. But he's gonna step in, we're gonna, you know, talk about it. I'm gonna tell him how I'm gonna cook it. Maybe he'll bring something else up. And it's that back and forth, when in comparison to buying from a large producer, you know, I feel like, you know, our second location is coming within the next year and maybe third or fourth, but they don't see me as that. They see me as a new business with a new location, and they're going to try to upsell me, and the conversation will be short, and it's just a completely different experience.
Very good. Anything else you would like to add as from the chef's perspective in bringing in local products into your establishment?
Well, with a chef like me, you know, I'm a businesswoman, but I'm a chef, and I can't get away from that. And the bottom line is the flavor, and we get commentary about it constantly. You know, there's this very, very special, unique flavor from less processing of the cattle, point blank, period.
Very good. Miss Rocky, thank you for your time today.
My pleasure.
We
Whenever
appreciate
you're
you.
in Denver, please stop by my shop. Stop for one of our sandwiches on the house.
Will do. Thank you.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rocky.
Thank you, guys.
So we want to move into, we started off with some background information, and that here's how these animals are raised. Here's the difference between, you know, the broadline system when you're using a distributor, you know, what you're having available to you, the process that products are moving through the system to go from the farm to you. But we want to also offer some information on how to ensure that you have USA beef on your menu. And the first thing is make a commitment to a single farm or ranch, and identify their operation on your menu. That's the first thing. When you make a commitment to that ranch, you're securing your product flow in a lot better fashion. And there's always hiccups. As you see, the process, you know, is 18 months from birth to finish. Add another 9 months before that for gestation. So 26, 27 months is a long time. A lot of things can happen. But when you're making a commitment to that ranch is going to be able to tell you their flow of cattle. They can make adjustments to their operation to fit yours, your needs, but then also that gives you a lot more security to the to being able to put that ingredient, the beef ingredient, on your menu. And just identifying the operation on your menu offers you the opportunity to tell the farmer story or rancher story through your operation, but also that is something that the customers are looking for. It's amazing through the pandemic, when we're all sitting at home, the searches that were going on, and that people started really educating themselves about things that they wanted to take the time to do, but didn't have the time. So when they did have the time, then they really started asking a lot of questions. So identifying that operation on your menu provides you that opportunity to pinpoint, this is where my beef is coming from. This is who we're supporting, and thus this is who you're supporting. The other thing is that you can include multiple product placements on your menu. Cattle are more than just burgers. There is some awesome cuts that even through the box beef industry have kind of gone away. And so, as Travis mentioned, like cowboy ribeyes, something that we really don't see, or tomahawks is another name for it, something we really don't see a lot of, but really that piece right there will offer you an opportunity to really display an entree. But on the same token, there is I have a restaurant that we supply, and that we do beef baby back ribs on their menu, for their appetizers. We also have a charcuterie boards that they create. There is multiple placements that you can go and put this beef on your menu. Why is that important from the cattle perspective? Well, we're more than just tenderloin and ground beef. We have all these other items. So the more opportunities that you can spread beef throughout your menu, the less cattle would have to be harvested in order to supply your restaurant. And then
Yeah,
the bottom line is the independent U.S. rancher is your establishment's partner. We're the ones that are coming and visiting your place on a weekly basis. We're supporting you, and so in return, the support coming back to us, this keeps it full circle and a holistic approach.
I was going to add one thing on that last slide is one thing we've been doing is we working with one butcher shop, and he's really helped with that ebb and flow. What he's committed to is he's buying the equivalent of 1.5 beef every week, and that's in box beef form. So I took the trim from him, but he's buying chuck rolls at a flat rate, but he's also getting those ribeyes at that flat rate. So I have created with him kind of selling a whole beef to a customer, but it's 1.5 beef every week to a butcher shop. He's able to showcase from front end to back end, but not only that, from a financial and an economic standpoint, we're doing that at one flat rate. So he's paying pretty high for a chuck roll, but he's getting a really good deal on those middle cuts. And that's so helpful to build into that. You know, we, like Patrick said, we would love to get in every component of that menu and be as unique as possible. So I just thought I'd throw that in there, and thanks.
Yeah, and you don't have to be a steakhouse in order to have this, you know, be able to source your beef locally. We have 2 Italian restaurants. One makes raviolis. He uses cheap meat for the beef component to the ravioli. I have another Italian restaurant that does trim, but then also they have Italian dish with ribeye, and so they'll grind the trim in house, make their own spaghetti sauce or their own sausage, pasta sausage, I guess is the more proper term. But then also has a ribeye steak on his menu. We talked about have the restaurant with the baby back ribs. Something that we really don't see in the beef world is beef baby back ribs. It was asked, I looked, it was there. And so we, you know, have a commitment to him. And the uniqueness of it is that it's also a bar. So during the like the Super Bowl or the NCAA tournament, he will offer those beef baby back ribs as an all-you-can-eat item. So it brings flavor diversity to your restaurant. You're not taking an item that you're seeing in the chain establishments and putting that same item on your menu. You're able to pull yourself apart from them and say, you know, I'm different, and in being different, this is how I'm being different. We have an establishment that does steak tartare. That's a Lebanese restaurant. So beef runs across all genres of cultural menus, and that you just don't have to be a steak place in order for you to have beef on your menu. How to source direct. If you want to make the change, how do you go about doing it? Well, we have several options here that we're offering up. The first is, of course, you can contact the U.S. Cattlemen Association. That if you're in Kansas, you know, the U.S. Cattlemen will know who the ranches are in Kansas that you can go direct to, or whatever state you're at. The second option is your state Department of Ag. A lot of our state Department of Ags now have marketing departments. So you can, like we have in North Carolina, we have the Got to Be NC program. And so you can call them, say, hey, I'm trying to find a local beef to put on my menu, and they will know who farmers and ranchers are in your community or in your state, and they can help you direct and get in contact with them.
We have a Colorado Proud directory, and it lists everyone out as well if you're registered with Colorado Proud. So
yes, sir. Social media, Google search. You know, the one beautiful thing that we're seeing now with farming and ranching community is that we're out there telling our story. And you can look on social media, try to find a place, and then also other chef recommendations. That's one of the ways that we have grown through the years. We've been here for 21 years now. We started in 2004 direct marketing to restaurants, and it literally was a chef coming and visiting a restaurant that we serve beef in, saw our name on the menu, and then that partnership, them telling our story, then moved us over and added on other restaurants, and it has ballooned on out. So other chef recommendations is a good way to in sourcing direct. And so at this point in time, we'd like to just
Field any
stop
questions?
and answer any questions anybody has. Leah, I don't know if how we see.
She said there aren't any in Facebook yet.
I don't see any questions that have come in on Facebook or via the webinar, but we can wait just a few more minutes here. And if we don't end up getting any, how can folks reach out to you afterwards? This will be shared via our social media pages, so it live in perpetuity on our Facebook and YouTube channels. How do folks get in touch with the both of you if there are questions that come up after this recording?
Well, I
Sure.
I have an email at patrick@harrisrobinette.com.
And I'm at travis.stovall48@gmail.com. And I'm happy to take phone calls at 970-759-9217 as well.
All right,
Okay.
excellent. Thank you. And we did have one question come in from Anna Jackson. She says, what is the best way to approach the restaurant or grocery? What info are they looking for specifically in terms of production and pricing?
Well,
So I have a unique way of approaching a restaurant, and that is just walking in. Or I'll go and visit, see their menu, and then, strike up a conversation with the chef while eating. But the info that they're looking at, number one, what's the cost? And so we've taken the approach of, there is always an invoice cost, but what is the actual plate cost? So like we know our beef and we know how it will yield from live to meat yield, but we also know how it yields when you cook it. And so we can take that raw cost, convert it over to a plate cost, and then we can, show that, yes, in our case, you're paying more for it on the raw side, but from the finished plate side, because in our operation, we'll trim down to that restaurant spec, that they're not losing that waste in their kitchen. They're not taking their time having to get everything prepared. And so the plate cost is either the same or slightly less. I will also, the other information is price fluctuation. One of the things I was going to mention earlier, yesterday, the USDA average price for a brisket with decal off was $4.14 a pound. Today it's $4.41. Wild swing. What's the reason? Don't know, but you're the one that's going to have to absorb that within your menu itself. So we have taken an approach that we don't fluctuate our pricing. In our case, we're grass-fed, grass-finished. The cost of growing grass is the same today as it was yesterday for the most part. And so what that price of that beef is. So then you can set your menu price and stay well within your margins there, because you're not making it today and then losing tomorrow. the other information is, again, telling the story. You know, this is who we are and this is what we do. We gel with some restaurants, and then there's other restaurants that we don't gel with, and that's fine. So those are my suggestions.
My approach is much the same as Patrick's. I done several cold calls, and I just go straight in and say I'd like to talk to the owner or the chef. But beyond that, a little more explanation. I tried to familiarize myself with the restaurants. You know, here in Denver, is it a younger demographic from 25 to 35 that come drink the craft beer? If so, what's going to be important to them? Is it a restaurant in rural Colorado that really showcases family meals and is important on you know, family centric and is in the community, and they're going to support the baseball team? So if that's the key, then I know how to approach them and give them what they're looking for. Is it a very trendy, we're into the grass-fed kind of revitalization and environmentally sound type of restaurant? So there are several nuances in this. You get to familiarize yourself with them and kind of figure out what they need. Then you're able to approach them. What's really cool about that is what we're doing is so genuine. I feel like, I know it's a big word to use, but I kind of hit all those components. So the trendy local place, yeah, we're local. We raise our cattle humanely. It's dry aged beef. It's dry aged chuck roll that turns into ground beef. So it's a dry aged ground beef patty. We're really neat. Yes, we're also family people. So we also have families in rural Colorado. So we're connecting to that type of restaurant. And yes, we do things more naturally. We age them. We don't add hormones. We don't do this. We don't do that. So that restaurant that's very trending in that sense, we're able to meet what they're looking for. Yeah, we've got the most beautiful dry aged bone-in ribeye you'll ever see. If you want to make that your center plate and that $100 a plate kind of thing, we have the quality that can match that. So, you know, it's not a win every time, but I guess my suggestion would be to familiarize yourself with your customer, because there are certain components. We have all these baskets of things to offer them, and there are certain things they want out of that basket. As you get to learn them and their restaurant, you'll be able to better understand what part of that to present. So that would be my approach to it.
Thank you, Travis and Patrick. And we had another question come in via Facebook. Casey Conway from Clarksville, Texas says, just tuning in now. So are you pushing 100% US beef? If so, thank you. So kind of a question comment, but maybe just summarize here for folks who are just tuning in.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. Yes.
Sure are.
So that is the mission of the U.S. Cattlemen Association, as our mission as U.S. cattle producers, is identifying that beef and that it is U.S. It's U.S. grown, U.S. processed, U.S. harvested. I went and visited a friend of mine. Has a friend that has a restaurant. We sat down. I looked at the menu, and my friend raises cattle. Looked at the menu. I can't identify where, what's on there, where that beef come from. And so I ordered a salad. Kind of took everybody for surprise. But for me, why am I going to support the industry that is trying to choke us cattle producers by buying a steak or a burger that day? I'd much rather put my dollars into a restaurant that is also buying and identifying local or regional or even U.S. We all have different modes of distribution methods. As for me, I'm nationwide distributing. And so, yes, it kind of gets that local and that regional out, but there's people on the West Coast that has our beef, that tells our story. We just gelled on that. There's different ways that we can go about doing this. We are promoting U.S. produced, harvested, and processed beef.
I'll echo that with a resounding yes as well. And just add on to Patrick, we here at Meet America, America's in our name. Meet America. And it's MEET. It's not misspelled, but we wanted people to meet their American ranchers. I wanted to create something, we wanted to create something that we always called freezer beef growing up, is to showcase, be able to present that to individual families, restaurants, the gauntlet of people I tried to sell to. But to underline, highlight, and bold it, yes, it is U.S. born, raised, and processed beef, and we're extremely proud of that. And we want the people to know their local story, but that local story can go, and we've shipped beef to Michigan and Texas, and pretty humbling being able to ship beef from Colorado to Texas, the cowboy state of all. But yeah, for sure, telling our story to other American citizens is what we're all about, and we are as American as it can be. So yes, yes, yes.
All right, I'm looking, and do we have any final questions here? I'm not seeing on Facebook or our webinar. I guess that was a great closing wrap-up section there, but any other final thoughts here, Travis or Patrick? Anything that we'd like to leave our folks with here today?
I'd just like to add, thank you guys for the time. Leah, thank you for putting this together. You know, it's just important. I've had other local producers kind of step on some of my accounts, and sure, it hurts, but the component of that being local and being replaced by someone else local at least lets me go to bed and sleep at night. It's just so pivotal to me to save this industry that's done so much for us and has really, you know, been what America, Western United States is all about, is independence and the cowboy, right? And beyond all that mystiqueness is like, this is a industry that impacts so many rural economies that sometimes we are forgotten about. So without going down a long trail, I just wanted to say thank you, and how important this is to a whole, and just buy local. You know, if I have competitive from other local producers, then I feel like I've done my job. I'd much rather compete against that than some of the misconceptions that are out there. So I'll leave it at that. Again, great opportunity.
My final thought was to leave you with is that as an independent restaurant, you've taken all this time to have ability of telling your story of your beliefs, your vision of food, and how it should be prepared and taste. But yet we stop short because we go to a distributor who has a sales rep. That sales rep's coming in, and you're purchasing items that are codes on a computer. And so buying direct from a rancher, yes, it is a little bit more upfront work. Yes, there is different ranches that raise cattle different ways, and that, you know, some flavors and some production methods don't work for the way you might cook or prepare. But there are people out there that it will mash up well. And so taking that extra step of finding that rancher, putting that beef on your table takes you that next step of evolving your menu and improving on it, because it continues to add another chapter to that story. And so you know, there is a little upfront work, but once you get in the routines, that rancher knows what to expect, and then they're prepared, and then it smooths out relatively quick. We have some restaurants that we've been serving for 12 years, and out of those restaurants that we've been on the menu that long, like, I know pretty close what to expect every week. And so like I'm pretty much ready. We get their order, and then we make our little adjustments from there, and then it's out the door. So yeah, so there is a little work up front, but it's so nice to, instead of going to a sales rep say I have a problem and that sales rep gives you another no name, no face beef item to replace it, that if you have a problem and you buy direct, you know exactly who to go to. You got to know exactly who's going to answer that question, and then give them the opportunity to make it right, fix it, make adjustments. And then what you're also doing is making them better cattle producers. And so stuff just doesn't get lost in the mix. So anyhow, that would be what I would want to leave you with.
All right, great. Well, thank you to Travis, Patrick, and everybody here for joining us this morning. We are going to wrap up here today, but this video will be available via our Facebook and YouTube channels and also on our website here. Unless we've got any further questions, comments, concerns, Patrick, Travis, we will go ahead and sign off. Thank you guys again, and please do stay in touch with the U.S. Cattlemen's Association.
Thank you, Leah.